What is up, everybody? This is Michael Sikand. I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Simran Sandhu. And this is our future podcast, the entrepreneurship show for young people, brought to you by Morning Brew. Simi and I sold our business at the ages of 22 and 24. So we know a thing or two about winning in business as, young cats. And now we study other young people who are building cool companies, just talk about their strategies. We study their businesses, we do some analysis, and we'll help you guys figure out maybe what your next venture should look like, or just steal tactics from people who are already winning. So I'm pretty pumped to get into this. Simi and I, as usual, have kind of a similar fit going. We're both wearing a black cap with 3 letters on it, which kind of signals you're a tech douchebag. But I'd like to say we're a little bit more of a tech gentleman. So we're going to be cooking this one up.
All right, well, I guess as a tech gentleman, I'll just have to go ahead and get us kicked off with the first story today. So for our first story, we have these 3 founders. Their names are Rishi Nair, Ryan Sullivan, and Pamela Chen, and they've raised millions of dollars to build this company called Ditto. But instead of explaining it in the traditional way, I'm going to give it to you in a little bit of a story. Michael, when's the last time you watched a show where you've looked at the characters and said to yourself, wow, I really want to dress like them?
Dude, all the time. Like, that was literally me growing up. Like, I would see characters in the movies and I would literally want to be them and look exactly like them.
Okay. And what's a show that made you feel that way very recently?
The Gentleman. It's like
The Gentleman.
This aristocratic guy. Yeah.
Okay. I actually like that. It's got that quiet luxury feel to it, similar to how Kendall Roy is in Succession. And so,
for sure,
this company Ditto essentially enables that. You can look at those dresses and the clothes that these actors are wearing on screen, and then you can actually buy it through the interactive shopping experience they've created on the streaming platform itself. And so, the backstory to this company is actually pretty funny. So Rishi's mom was a big fan of the show Selling Sunset. And, she always wanted the dresses on the show, but she just couldn't find them very easily. And so Rishi was like, you know what, Mom, I got you. I'm going to create this Chrome extension, and it's going to be super easy to track, all the accessories and dresses on the show. Ends up that the Chrome extension is doing really, really well. So he's thinking to himself, what is a higher leverage opportunity that I could do this for? And it just so happened the big opportunity was creating an API for streaming platforms. So the way it works is, they're really focusing on this holy grail of TV commerce. So, you go watch a show, and then at the end of it, there's almost this tab that comes up that says, hey, do you want to buy the clothes? And it highlights every single article of clothing, and you can easily, one click check out via the streaming platform itself. So I think it's pretty cool. The way they do this is they have this AI and proprietary computer vision technology that they're using. So it's cool in that it doesn't use a QR code, and it doesn't ruin your viewing experience as a consumer. But the way it works is they run this computer vision over the entire video, and it identifies every product and stores them in a timestamp database. And so, after the show is over, you can look through the database, buy what you want. And, I don't think it's crazy expensive in terms of the fees that they're charging. It can be anywhere between 4 to 6%. So I guess it depends a little bit on how expensive the dress is. Maybe if I'm trying to be like Kendall Roy, I'm going to end up spending a lot of money. But, I think it's a cool company. The space is starting to get competitive because in some ways it's similar to sports, that you have to nail, a partnership with a big streaming platform, which, in the case of the NFL, they're crushing. But there's another company called ShopSense AI, and they just closed a deal with Paramount. So they're kind of on this train right now where they're trying to lock in a bunch of deals. They've already signed deals with 12 companies and 7 streaming platforms. But it's a hot space, and we haven't seen any incumbent who has really dominated when it comes to TV commerce.
Yeah. Dude, it's fascinating, right? I think shoppable, AI-driven commerce is going to be a massive category. I mean, TikTok Shop with a combination of purchasing directly from a video that you see, right? I think the angle for streaming movies and TV is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think these streamers are definitely looking for new revenue sources, given kind of the tightening of subscriptions in the American wallet. And just the competitive nature of all these platforms. They're rolling out, more ad tiers, right? So I'd say incremental monetization, finding additional revenue streams is really important for these streamers. So I think it really is a problem and a big opportunity they're trying to solve. I'm curious how this space plays out, because you have, each platform doing it a little differently. Roku has like commercials where you can purchase directly from them. I think it was Peacock that has QR codes that come up to let you purchase products while watching. And Amazon has just rolled out like a shoppable video feed. So it's manifesting in myriad ways. But I think there's going to be one major winner. And I think that they're going to end up licensing their tech to all of the streamers, or they're just going to get bought by one streamer before that. But I think what we've seen in the past is media companies aren't great at developing their own technology. I mean, Disney had to go buy BAMTech to like build Disney Plus. So I think this is a sophisticated enough technology, and it is very hard. Like, it is going to take a while for AI to truly surface the right products based on kind of what it can identify on a screen through with the pixels. But yeah, I think these guys have a good shot at getting a piece of this market. I do think there's a high chance it's winner takes all.
Yeah, I
for this
think
particular
though,
space.
if to your point, these streaming platforms end up buying each player just to keep for themselves, I think that is how you end up having a few different players in the space. I will say
Yeah.
this makes me think of The Big Lesson, and it comes from this guy named Brad Jacobs. He's like on record for having started the most amount of billion-dollar companies. Like, I think he started 7 multi-billion-dollar companies, and his big lesson is you can get a lot of things wrong as long as you get the one big trend right. And I think in this case, that big trend is personalization. I think that these streaming
Yeah.
platforms are more curated and more personalized than they've ever been. And when I think about the shopping experience, the real opportunity is personalization there as well. Right. So you're already getting these recommendations. You go to a platform like Netflix, and they're recommending all these shows and TVs that you should watch, movies that you should watch based off of your previous experience. What would that look like on a shopping basis? What if it was even recommending shows or movies based on like your specific taste, right? Like, maybe there's a match here, right? Like, oh, Michael likes gentlemen, and that the clothing in that show is eerily similar to the show clothing used in Succession, and they're both kind of
Yes.
focused on business. They're both kind of male dominated shows, or whatever criteria it uses, and that is another layer or signal that is involved in the curation process.
Dude, it's so fascinating, the future of e-commerce and shopping. There's many startups going after. I actually just met with a founder who's building in the space, grabbed a coffee with him this weekend. And we also had Sam Ratner on the show, right? Still a majority of shopping, the vast majority is like search driven. It's like, I want this product, I'm going to go get it. I think the big opportunity is inspiration based shopping. Now that AI is good enough to take what something looks like and surface many products that are similar to that is huge, right? And I actually think that this particular like shopping and AI, the confluence of it, is one of the coolest consumer applications of AI in generating lookalike products. So have you heard of dupe culture by any chance?
I have not. This is new to me.
Well, let's be honest. You're not really tapped into the Gen Z trends like maybe I am, but the boy's an old soul. But Gen Z is celebrating something called dupe culture, which is finding cheaper alternatives to like what a celebrity might wear, and then looking just as good, but spending a fraction of the price.
That might not be a Gen Z thing, brother. I think that's been around for a hot minute.
I know, but it's being celebrated. Like, if someone found something that looks like an expensive, like, I don't know, Louis Vuitton type thing, like they're like, hell yeah, like, let's, for the people, like, it's cheap. So I wanted to tell you about like another company I think that's nailed this. And I want to say that this company we're talking about, Ditto, they've crushed it. So they also recommend not only the exact product, but they also recommend like dupes that kind of look similar to that. And I think that's kind of the main value of this, is maybe not buying the $700 t-shirt, but buying the $70 t-shirt and looking, as close to Kim K as you can. But there's another one in the furniture space, and I've seen them blowing up on Instagram lately. They're a consumer app. They're advised by Nikita Beer, who built Gas App. And it was started by these two guys, and their names are Ramin Bozorgzadeh and Bobby Gosel, and they've built a company called Dupe. So what it does is you take a piece of furniture that you like. You could go to Restoration Hardware, some of these really expensive sites, paste the link into their website, and then it'll spit you out a dupe for a fraction of the price, that looks like just as cool as that aesthetic you're trying to reach, but like isn't going to charge you that crazy price tag. And they've been crushing it. Their marketing is really good. And I think, hashtag dupe on TikTok has over 3 billion views. So it's definitely a trend that Gen Z's buying into. And I think this is one of the most clear cut examples of like consumer based AI that we're seeing play out in the market. And it's still early, and it's going to get a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, look at a business like Google, right? And it's no secret their ads business is the biggest part of Google, and their real big cash cow. Well, take a business like this that has now made the shopping experience even more frictionless. Like, that is inherently, why there's so much success that social platforms have had, and why social commerce is a big thing. You see something on Instagram, you see something on TikTok,
Yep.
boom, I like it, I want to buy it, and I can do it through the
Yeah.
platform. And I think that is essentially what they're trying to do on the TV side of things. So, what does that look like in an advertising driven model? If I know that my product, or like I'm trying to get my product placed in a certain kind of show because I know it gets X amount of viewership, and I
Yeah.
know that I can see an X% increase in sales once the show premieres, or once it reaches a certain demographic. Or I think this gets so intricate and so interesting at the same time.
It gets almost
Yeah.
dystopian. Like, could you imagine like our whole world is going to become shoppable because, these companies all want you to spend money with them, but like they can't always have intent that comes from within. So it's all about how do we get people to drive purchasing decisions when they see something they like, right, in the moment. And I think that's like a big thesis behind this wearable technology. Like maybe the vision, from a business standpoint that these companies have, like Meta or Apple Vision Pro with these headsets, is like truly, making the world like your own store. Like I think it's fascinating. But these guys are going to have quite the uphill battle, I think, and mainly just like getting into these big like streaming platforms, right? Like getting the product adopted. It's not as good right now as it could be. Like the fact that it happens at the end of the show and you have to go and like look through the timestamps and whatever to pick the products. I mean, I think it would be a lot more seamless if it was like on screen at that moment. You could actually, see what was going on. I know Amazon Prime Video had a cool feature where you could see like what actor was featured on the screen, and then they bought IMDb so they could like see information on the show as you watch it. And there was like
The
cool fun
reason why you
facts.
can't do that though, or why it's hard, is that if you have a million people watching it, it becomes really, really
Yeah,
challenging. Especially if you're trying to facilitate an entire shopping experience from beginning to end. Because it's one thing to just hover over the screen and see the same information that everyone else is seeing, but it's another if you're like clicking around and like moving to different pages. And I think that that
totally.
actually like adds a challenging component to this. There's one other aspect of this that I think could be really interesting, which is a 9-figure opportunity around research. So if you could somehow like distill this down, I don't know, you'd have to have some kind of partnership with the streaming platform, or with the brands that are selling on a Netflix, on a Hulu, on a Paramount, whatever. And if you can put these in these like really like industry driven reports, and then sell that to banks, private equity firms, research companies, like you could probably make a lot of money. This is probably another social channel unlocked for creating research and making a lot of money from it.
Wait, so you're saying that young entrepreneurs should think about just doing research and compiling data on like a new industry like shoppable video commerce, and then just creating reports on it and selling it to these big firms?
Yeah, I'm saying like, yeah, I mean, think about how many big research firms exist. And their entire job is to like break down, specific channels, specific platforms, and kind of distill down like what the opportunities are, the sector growth, optimal times. And they're almost like just highlight like industry research, and they're like 30-40 page reports. I think when a new channel like this is unlocked and becomes a little bit more mainstream, you could probably do the same thing here, which is like, no, the great thing is that like no one has an advantage here, right? Like you're not in the same way that like, when we would pitch our future to these big companies, when we were trying to get activations and stuff, we would say the same thing. It was like, listen, we understand this channel just as well as the CMO who's been in that role for 20 plus years, because it's a new channel and the playing field is level. And I'm saying the same thing is taking place here, where you could say like, hey, I know that there are all these incumbent research firms that exist, but they don't know anything that much more, because this is just a new channel that has been created. And so you're kind of on equal footing for the first time. And there's going to be a lot of appetite for this information, especially if it can drive a material impact in sales. If this becomes a real channel where people are actively buying clothes, and it gets to even say hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in volume, there is definitely appetite for this. And I could see, big banks, big private equity firms, big hedge funds buying, spending millions of dollars to buy this info.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, oh, Lululemon's just rolled out this new strategy, right? Where like people can purchase the products from these shows and movies. And like, I think that would be a material driver of stock price for sure. I do believe that this is the next big unlock in commerce, is like this inspiration first purchasing. Like just the power of AI to be like, I want this, like, here's something that looks like that. I think is just like pretty wild. And the business model is great because like you can then partner with like these brands and you can get affiliate deals, right? So like it definitely makes a lot of sense, right? Like how do we, take what we're seeing and spending most of our time on is in the digital platforms, and then, that's kind of where we make our purchasing decisions. Like I could see like a website where it's just a curation of like some of the coolest celebrity outfits, and then it uses AI to help you like generate, links to products that you think would be cool, right? So it's like, and it like the consumer goes to this website and then they select their favorite like actors or like TV shows, and then it spits out like an aesthetic for like your wardrobe, and like will help you with that. Or like you could think about like a Stitch Fix competitor, right? Like could you build like a subscription box that's like the fashions that are in style with like the hottest TV shows is like shipped straight to your door? Like I know everyone with Succession was talking about stealth wealth. That was the trend, which was no labels. It's just like very nice clothing that like fits in the boardroom and the business environment, and that people were going crazy over that. So I do believe like movies and TV have always driven our culture and have always been, the impetus for taste. So this is a big unlock. I think these guys are thinking about a smart problem. We'll see. I think they're going about it in the best way they can, which is like this data light solution of let's just do it all at the end. We'll train only one video with the AI and don't have to allow these streaming platforms to take their video off platform, just because that's so much data. But yeah, I hope they can win here, because it's, there's going to be a lot of people looking at it and it's valuable for sure. Consumers want this.
I think there's some good points there. It also makes me wonder about like the future of influencer marketing, because something that's been hot for, the past few years, it's been around forever, but I would say especially in the past few years have been like, celebrities going and creating brands and, apparel lines. And what about like, your A-list actor who's just like, I'm going to wear this in the movie. Or like maybe they don't even need to be super, super famous. It could just be like, TV show characters just being like, oh, I'm going to wear these certain brands, and they're making, millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars just doing these deals with the actors in the show itself. And so now you're wearing this particular brown jacket with the intention that someone will go and buy this, right? Because it just is it has a little bit of flair into it. Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Michael here. Just want to take a brief break from the show to talk about our sponsor for today's podcast, and that is Affinity. Affinity is one of the fastest growing business credit card startups. They focus on small businesses and partner with the trade organizations that represent them, offering industry-specific rewards, features, and support. They offer co-branded cards with trade organizations like the American Podiatric Medical Association and the National Community Pharmacists Association. So if you want to learn more, go to their website at affinity.finance. I've linked it in the show's description. You can check it out further. So I have a second story here, and I think it's kind of like a little different than some of the past story we've talked about. This guy is not venture backed, but like I just think there was just such a gold mine of lessons that I learned, and I think his story is going to be super relatable to guys who might want to ship a software product and work on something in tech if you're not technical. So I want to tell you about Clay Ratterman. He is 28 years old and has a pretty interesting background. So he was a walk-on for the Ohio State football team and actually played safety. But once he realized that being a white guy like wasn't really going to be his path, he pivoted and kind of focused his energies on the business world. He ended up working at Oracle and tried to launch a variety of startups, but became really interested in how to manage his personal finances. He thought that spreadsheets were too manual, so he loved Notion and thought that, hey, like, why isn't there like a better way to manage your finances in a more customizable format? So what he did was he built an API to connect Plaid data with Notion that allowed him to build this custom interface for all of his budgeting, financial planning, various metrics, just getting a really accurate dashboard on his personal finances and his investing. And it really occurred to him that this was a big opportunity. There are a number of players in the space that do a personal finance product. For example, Mint was big, but they actually shut that down. There's like Rocket Money, which that used to be Truebill, help you cut down on subscriptions. So there are these personal finance platforms, but his big gripe with them is they're not customizable enough. So he actually went on a backpacking trip to the Himalayas after having built this, Notion-based product, a very MVP version. And he's like, oh my God, I need smarter people to build this with. So his mission became to find an engineer who could truly build a product that was capable of like delivering on this use case for consumers. And now the company is called Fin.xyz. They have over 10,000 users. They have a free and a paid plan. And he really wants to take this personal finance space on. Everybody's told him not to. Typically, these personal finance apps are loss leaders for these big brands like Quicken, Rocket Mortgage. They just they just use them to get people through the door and then pitch them and upsell them on other financial products. But look at inflation rates. The American wallet has never been tighter. People are feeling more negative about their spending power than ever. So empowering customers, with a solution like this, I think is really fitting for the times. And it's about time that someone builds like a really good product in the space. So kudos to Clay bootstrapping this platform and being able to build a really, really cool product. I've used it and it's got so many different features and customization that I think are helpful to anybody who's, trying to manage their personal finances, which is a really hard job.
Yeah, I think this is really cool, man. I personally use spreadsheets for my own stuff. And I'm like, dread the moment where it's like, oh man, and now I gotta update this, or now I gotta change things around. And it's such a time consuming process. And I've always thought to myself, I'm like, man, I don't know why, I don't know how other people do it. Now, as of recent, I would say in the past few weeks, I've been told about this other company that does a great job with this, and it's called Kubera. And it is a network tracking tool. So Austin, our CEO, talks a lot about it. I saw him post something about it on Twitter, and apparently a lot of other like high net worth people use it, but it essentially does the same thing, tracks your entire net worth.
Well, you've Sam's new podcast, Moneywise. They're all talking about like how the wealthiest people spend and manage their money.
Yeah.
One of the coolest parts about Clay's platform is you can create templates and then share those with your audience. I think it's exciting. There's a big economy for people sharing their Notion templates, like for productivity or for money management or for workflow and productivity. So I think he could create an entirely new way that people help others with their financial literacy and like sharing how they track their money and how they stay on top of things. It's remarkable how important it is to stay on top of your finances and how little people like spend to solve the problem, because everybody's overspending. It's so hard. And like if people are spending $1,000 on Wegovy or Ozempic to cut back on their weight, like there's got to be a product that can fulfill that for finances. It's like all these companies, they're charging like $10 a month for these financial products. And what Clay was saying is people just don't want to pay for them. But like you should be. Like if there's anything you should pay for, it's something to help you save money.
This seems to be a problem that's consistent with tracking all across the board. So I know when it comes to your health, Whoop is a super popular one, and people used to love it initially, which was it tracked your sleep, gave you a recovery score, and tracked all this other like bio data, whatever that would just be really helpful. But if you're someone who didn't really like take care of your health or didn't really like do a good job about like how you approach sleep, maybe you were drinking a lot and then you go to bed and then you get a really bad recovery score, chances are most people would churn, right? Like they don't need a tool to tell them how bad they're doing when they already know it. And my hunch is that like if you're overspending on your credit cards or you're in credit card debt or all this other type of stuff, taking out loans, chances are you probably know your financial situation is pretty dire. Like, do I need another tracking app to tell me like what I already know? And I would say that's
Yeah.
probably been a big impediment up to this point, with getting like mainstream access for something like this or getting people to pay for it, is like generally speaking they
So
may not
true.
know to a dollar or to a specific penny, but they do have a high level idea about their current financial position.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right on that. I mean, you download like a journaling app or a meditation app and like you're really good at it for the first 2 weeks and then you just churn, right? Um, and
The
but there,
novelty wears
but
off.
again,
Yeah.
we have to remember though that there are people who just make a change in their life and stick to it forever. Like there are people who drop 100 pounds, who drop 50 pounds, who change their eating habits over the long term, who really do change these things. And you need a good vehicle for doing that. And a lot of it's like psychological, just like making that choice, that decision. What Clay was saying is all of these like financial apps, like they're way too cookie cutter. And like he said, like bootstrapping this is really hard because consumers demand so many features. It's really hard to build like the features that you really need to make this happen. No one's actually really invested in doing that. No one's actually you've done the legwork of building what the consumer actually needs in this space. And it certainly could be like a matter of like innovation, to create a new behavior, to force people to actually to stay on top of this because you're giving them the features that enable them to track it seamlessly. You see that Launch House guy just launched his company. Was it called Superhuman? It's like a full on concierge dashboard for like biohacking in your health. And it's like, it really comes down to the product. You know what I mean? Like, can your product be good enough that people don't churn? And I think that that's the mechanic that's been happening over and over again, is like, that's why Clay needed to find these two rock star engineers to build, this product with him.
I think,
But he's
for that's a great example. And I think you bring up a solid point, which is a small percentage of people actually have the discipline to see it through. And so, it makes me think maybe the value is just targeting a niche part of this market and just focusing it all on them. Like, do I
yeah,
really want to build out a bunch of features for someone who's going to complain about paying $10 a month? Like, screw that. I'm going to do the higher end of the market, and I'm going to the people worth tens of millions, hundreds of millions, maybe even billions, and saying, hey, let me create this thing for you, can track everything, all your liquid, all your illiquid assets, all your money in all these different areas. And we'll do the legwork. Pay me, I don't know, 20K just as a one-time implementation fee to get this thing started. And, you're going to have real-time visibility into like where your money is moving at any point of the day. And that's personally what I would be doing in a situation like this.
understandable. I mean, Clay understands that too. When I spoke to him, he said everybody in the industry told him not to do personal finance for the average consumer. They said no, just because no one's really been able to succeed in it. And for him, that's all the more motivating to go after it. Now he said, look, there's always a way to make money in financial data. That's how he was able to recruit his first co-founder. So he said he's like, I don't know how to like build good tech. Like I'm a sales guy, I'm a marketing guy. So he spent time on like YC founder match portals, couldn't really find anyone. And he ended up finding his co-founder, Sean, on an indie hackers forum. And he was commenting on this area of data visualization over and over. And Clay kind of sussed out like this guy had never done startups before, but he had just left his job to work on a product that was somewhat similar in data visualization. And it just wasn't quite working. And that's when Clay struck. And Clay describes it took 5-6 months to really convince this guy to go into business with him. He flew out to Seattle to meet his family. And really what Clay told me is there's only a few people in the world who are going to be the perfect co-founder to build exactly the tech that you want to build. He wanted to find somebody who intimately understood data visualization and could help him bring that to the personal finance category. And he was able to recruit this guy. And then the guy helped recruit his third co-founder who was at Square, doing, very complex AI and engineering products there. So Clay talks a lot about, being able to find, that perfect co-founder. and how it really is a partnership. He said you really have to get the other person excited, as you have to get them as excited as they get you excited. So we talked about like doing all this legwork of getting a wait list ready for this guy, because a lot of people have ideas they want engineers to build, but then they just like go and build it and talk to me when it's done, instead of like really working in lockstep and showing them the skill sets are complementary.
No, I think it's a great
So
point. No, for sure. I think it's a great point. I can think about like, I can only imagine how common that is across a lot of sales and marketing folks. Like, yeah, like, the engineers working on this product, just check back in with me in like 3 months or 2 months or whenever you're finished, and then we'll get talking.
So true.
Yeah, it's
so
probably
true.
not
You really do have
it's not
to.
a great morale boosting activity for sure.
No, and I think that's what a lot of people get wrong. There are hired devs that don't care, or they'll try and find a technical co-founder that they can't get excited enough to really put in the work to build a complicated, tough product. But Clay said they might end up pivoting. He's like, if we could just build this specifically for a niche like the logistics industry, like, he said there's a lot of ways he thinks he can take it no matter what, but they do really want to focus on this personal finance thing because we need it. Like, there needs to be a better product in the space, and I think it's dope.
No, it's
like
definitely cool.
especially the templatizing it. Like, could you bring, like, a lot of these fintech companies are like, let's bring like the tactics of the 1% to the average consumer. Nobody's done that for spending, but people have done it for like rare artwork investing, for Masterworks, or like that company Arda we work for that wanted to be like a hedge fund family office in your pocket. So I think it's time for a premium product that's really good and that invokes that sense of like, this is what wealthy people do. You should be doing the same.
I would totally use this. I think on one hand, you could argue the timing for this is great because I think Mint got shut down. And I do think a lot of people were using Mint, like in the millions. So who knows? Maybe they can kind of ride that headwind and come in here and maybe get some adoption. Do you have any information on how the business is doing from a revenue standpoint?
Yeah, so he said they have 10,000 signups on the product. They have thousands of paid users. The subscriptions aren't like crazy high, but I think they're doing a decent amount of MRR on the product. They just kind of had their big launch, like I think last week. So it's still like early phases for them. They're going to go pretty hard on like marketing and stuff.
How are they growing it then? How is he growing the wait list? How is he getting, tens of thousands of people?
Clay's pretty active on like Twitter, like Growth Hacker, like Reddit and stuff. So like mainly like those channels. And then he did like an influencer campaign recently to get people in like personal finance. Because the good thing is there's a lot of creators in the space. Like people do have this desire. Like the good thing, man, is the desire is here for this product. The big question is, can that desire be turned into behavior? And everybody in this life wants to be thin. Everybody in this life wants to be ripped. Everybody in this life wants to be rich, but so few people are. You will make tons of money if you can build the Ozempic of personal finance. I'm gonna just call it that.
The Ozempic of personal finance.
A shortcut. There are no shortcuts, but can you make people feel like it's kind of a shortcut? I mean, look, that Reframe app to get people cut back on drinking, that's killing it. You know what I mean? People are following through. So give them a reason to with your product. I think it really comes down to the product. And I think that's a big takeaway from this conversation, and why a non-technical founder like Clay had to work his ass off to get engineers to buy into this and work on it with him.
I think that's a great point to wrap up the episode on. Thank you all for tuning into another episode of Our Future Podcast. Our info is in the show notes. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to this. And we will catch you again next week on another episode of Our Future Podcast. Stay frosty.
Stay frosty, everyone. Peace.